welcome to the TSG Multimedia Video Podcast for July 1st already. Wow.
Yeah.
This is John sitting with
Dan,
as usual, and this video podcast was prompted by a message or email, but somebody wanted to know about weathering powders and how to make them work right or how to make them stick.
Okay, well, I just happen to have two almost identical boxcars. So the only difference between them is that this one has been sprayed with dull coat and this one hasn't. And this one, in fact, I made even a little bit glossier because I added this ACI label. So I actually sprayed in this area some clear gloss because decals work better on glossy surfaces. So the reason that I then, before weathering, will spray the car with dull coat is because a flat surface is microscopically rough, and it gives a better surface for things like powders to adhere. Whereas the glossy surface is smoother. So it's like trying to get dirt to stick to glass or something. You know, you might get some to stick, but it's not as much as if you had, a rough, surface. So that's kind of the whole point of doing the dull coat. Plus it evens out things. It hides the decal film, hides the fact that I'd sprayed this, area to make it glossier to put the decal on in the first place.
It also makes it look more realistic because, frankly, I've seen probably thousands of rail cars, and I've never seen a shiny rail car. I mean, maybe one that's silverish, but you never see something that's actually reflective and shiny like what we're seeing on this one.
Yeah, well, one of the things is that sometimes if the car is new and it's just been painted, it may actually have a glossy finish. But glossiness is not something that scales well. It's one of those weird things that something may look fine as a full-size train car, but if you shrink it down to HO scale or N scale and have it be glossy, it'll look like a toy. Even if that's technically correct, it's something with the scale effect visually.
It just doesn't work, huh?
It just doesn't work. So everything, and generally models just look better when they're sprayed with the dull finish.
Yeah.
Even if you don't do any other weathering, that will greatly improve the realism.
Right. All right, so we're going to show the gloss one first then?
Yeah. Now, I wouldn't normally do this, but just for demo purposes, I'm going to see what happens if I try to put powder on the glossy car. So
I just expect it to slip right off.
Well, we'll see, I guess.
Don't the powders have like a self-adhesive kind of something in the way they're made?
Yeah, if you get the Bragdon or one of the other brands that's actually made and sold as a weathering powder for models, it has an adhesive binder in it. If you use like ground pastel chalks and things like that,
those drop off. Huh?
Yeah, those will just drop off. Yeah. So the real question is,
yeah, I don't really see anything on it.
It's not. Yeah, see, it's not really sticking very much.
Yeah.
So I'm putting some on because one of the things. This is just some dirt color powder that I have, and one of the things I like to do with these cars is, especially the ones that have ribs, is kind of, put some along the sides of the ribs.
It almost looks like oil and water.
Yeah,
like it does. It's not.
It's really not sticking very well. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me stop the camera. We'll put the one that has a dull coat in it. Try the same thing.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the one that has the dull coat, and you can kind of see over here that it's almost like a speckled effect where the dull coat went on. So, but let's see. I know what's going to happen. We've seen this hundreds of times. So.
Yeah. And in fact, we did a couple of videos on weathering freight cars. If you really want to see what can be done with powders and other techniques.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. There's a video podcast. I don't remember which month it was from. I believe it was late 2011, where we had a contest that we ran where Dan was going to weather somebody's model that they sent in. So, and you can see like the whole thing sort of from start to finish. Looked really good. So, it looks like it's sticking more on this.
Yeah. I'm using this. This is a micro brush that I'm applying this with, by the way. It's really good for powders.
Yeah. I can see that this is actually sticking because you can see up in the top where the
Yeah.
where the dirt was, yeah.
you can see that there's now a shadowed effect around those ribs there. So I always use a larger brush as a blender to kind of, work it in, and so it doesn't look so streaky. And it's definitely, you can tell, you compare these two ribs with this one, you can see that there's a definite darkening.
There's a shadow or something, right?
Yeah, which if you do the whole car, it really looks good that way. Makes it look like a real car more than a toy.
So the answer to the question is, to make the powders work better, use dull coat before you put them on.
And use the right powders.
Right.
Use the ones that already have an adhesive in them to begin with, because otherwise it can be more difficult. Now, if you just grind a pastel chalk with a piece of sandpaper, it will stick to the dull coat. The only problem is that with those, if you handle the car, it may come off later. And not that I really recommend handling the models more than you have to ever, but the other thing is if you spray more dull coat on top of it later, the pastels tend to disappear, whereas the weathering powders don't have so much that problem that I've seen anyway, that when I do it. So they'll last better.
So here's what the cans look like.
Right. This is the older can, and this is the newer can. For some reason, they changed the label recently, testers. And the only way to tell that this one is dull coat, this confused me last time I was at the hobby shop, but there's a barcode on the side around the back here that says dull coat.
1260 dull
1260
coat,
dull coat.
Which is the same thing it says down here, flat, clear lacquer.
Yeah, but
That's funny.
They really couldn't have made this any more confusing, I don't think, because they have gloss ones too, and the cans look exactly the same. The only difference is the little barcode. So kind of wish they hadn't done that myself, but it's the same stuff.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and you pointed out, and I'm noticing it now, the price went up too.
Yeah. Well, every time I go in the hobby shop, the price of paint is like another 25 cents more than it was last time.
I wouldn't be surprised if the price of everything is another 25 cents more.
Maybe. I don't know.
But yeah, that's funny. They increased the price because now it has a color label now. They have to pay more for that, so they're passing the cost on to you.
The good thing is that a can of dull coat usually lasts quite a while. So,
And it does what you need it to do, which is to
Right.
make everything stick and to make it look more like a real train. So.
Right.
All right, so what the heck, dude? I mean, what is this? Are you going to stick that on the nails or what?
No. This is, it's none of torture train parts here.
It's a rack for train pieces. The torture rack.
No, I thought for my modeling tip this month, I'd talk about bending brake lines, because this is actually one of the side frames from the tunnel motor we've been working on for our upcoming diesel weathering and detailing video.
Yes, it looks familiar.
Yeah, and I bent these by hand, but I realized as I was doing it that making a little jig might make this whole process easier. So what I did, this is really simple, is I just took a couple of small nails and put them in a board at the right size, because these brake lines on the this tunnel motor are curved on the end. Sometimes they're square, but on this particular locomotive they were curved.
Yeah, they're rounded, right?
Yeah,
I can see it. And then it goes into, what is that, a brake cylinder? Or?
Yeah, these are the brake cylinders, and then this would be the air line, I think, and this would go somewhere. And there's probably on the real one there would be a valve or T junction somewhere where the air would come in, but for model
Can't have everything.
No, besides you wouldn't see it anyway. It's like I don't model stuff that you couldn't even see after the thing's put back together.
It's like painting the eyelashes on the guy inside the model.
Right. Yeah, it wouldn't be. But anyway, with this jig, this is a piece of 010 brass wire, which is what I used to make this. That's painted now, so it's harder to see. But basically, just take it and bend one end around the nail, and then bend the other end.
Oh, I see. Then it's just a matter of cutting it to length, huh?
Yeah, and that way you can do all 4 trucks or whatever relatively quickly, and it doesn't want to come off.
Well, it is a finish nail, but even finish nails have little heads on them.
Yeah, so I'd have to finagle. Yeah, there we go. So anyway, these actually might be a little bit small, because it's making the radius is maybe a little tighter than I wanted. But you know, at least this way, I know that the distance between the bends is going to be the same on every one, and it's going to be correct. You know, should basically match what's there
Right.
pretty well, and it seems to.
Pretty cool. So it's just like a quick way to get stuff done faster if you want to,
Right.
really.
And the good thing is I could probably, what I should do is like take a Sharpie and write on here that this is for a EMD SD40T-2, and it probably would work for an SD40-2 also because they have the same trucks. You know, and just save this board for reuse on other models.
Well, I mean, I guess technically I can't back up with the camera too far, but it's a pretty big board. You could put probably 4 or 5 or 6 or 10, maybe even 20 different locomotives on that same board.
Yeah, I could
if you
do
wanted
that.
to.
I could do that. I just happened to have this piece of wood laying around, so I used it. I mean, you could really use any piece of wood, but it's, you know, obviously very simple. It took me like, you know, a minute to make this.
Right.
So I mean, it wasn't hard or anything, and you know, we'll save time and hassle. So
Yeah, more tips and tricks there.
yeah.
So, all right. Well, I guess that's it for this video podcast. Make sure you tune in to our audio podcast on the 15th of every month. And of course, our next video podcast will be on the 1st of next month. Something that is worth mentioning, we kind of mentioned this a couple times over the past couple podcasts, which is if you have a question for Dan, don't post it as a comment under the video on YouTube because we probably won't see it. But instead, email Dan directly. And his email address is
Dan, D-A-N, at tsgmultimedia.com.
there we go. So anyway, thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks.